Oscar, the prince of a country, had everything in his hands, but could not find happiness for himself. At the age of 5, he was cursed by an evil witch, making him unable to have an heir, while his friends at the age of 13 already had wives. That's why Oscar always wanted to find his other half, and went to find powerful witches to break the curse. His companion, Lezavok, was also worried about their trip this time, and kept sighing. He was afraid that if he got another terrible curse, he would be doomed, and Oscar would not be able to get married. What's the point of living if he is a man, and even the prince of a country, who can be laughed at by the world? The place they were heading to was the Tower of Light, where the sleeping witches were. No one had ever been able to pass that tower to meet the witches, but Oscar believed in himself that he would conquer the tower. He walked straight into the tower, as if it were his own home, and found it very similar to what was recorded. On each floor, they would face different challenges, and reaching the highest floor was where the witches lived. They would get any wish, so it was likely that the curse in his pants would be lifted this time. Even though he was extremely scared, he still wanted to follow His Highness to the end. On the first floor, they faced a group of snakes that looked fierce, but were not poisonous. Oscar didn't care about the snakes but figured out how to solve the riddle on the stone tablet, and successfully led them to the second floor. On the top floor at this time, 2 witches were talking about the challengers. It had been a long time since anyone had come like this, so the owner of the witch tower, Tinassha, was quite interested. Lisuola was the one who served under her. She was ordered by her master to clean up the losers from the tower because she thought that the challengers would still not be able to get here. Below, Oscar, with his superb swordsmanship, had passed the middle floor of the tower without much effort. The previous imperial records recorded that Oscar's great-grandfather was the one who conquered this tower. When he reached the next room, there were still stone monsters that were enchanted. The guy named Larai was so scared that he almost peed his pants. The 2 demons who replaced the intruders also woke up and attacked, but they were cut in half by the other guy, making the owner of the tower look at the last floor. She knew that the guy had passed the challenges very easily, so she invited him up. Since Larai didn't contribute anything to climbing the tower but just tagged along, he was also kicked out by the owner. They were separated, which made Oscar want to go back and save His Highness, but he was stopped by him. He didn't want His Highness's future to be ruined here because of him. He also wished Oscar all the best, and went downstairs. Oscar had to continue to the top floor, where Tinassha was waiting. At first glance, she saw that she was a beautiful girl who didn't look like a witch at all. She also said that Oscar's companion was fine, and was just sleeping downstairs, so he was relieved. He asked her what she ate to be so beautiful, or if she used magic to change her appearance. Tinassha had stopped aging a long time ago, and the lifespan of witches was dozens of times longer than that of ordinary people. If they did not die from being killed, they could live for thousands of years or more. Because it had been 5 years since anyone had come here, Tinassha also asked for his name. Oscar also said that he was the Prince of Farsas, the descendant of Regiers, the first person to come here, and of course, Tinassha knew him. No wonder they looked so alike, but the guy was a little more heartless than the old man. Maybe that's why he looked better, which made her like him a lot. Lothila also appeared to ask about the condition of Lazada sleeping under the tree. Oscar also asked about what would happen to those who failed when conquering the tower. Tinassha herself didn't want to kill people, so she also let them go like Lazada downstairs. Of course, part of their wishes had to be changed, which was the price those who wanted to have a chance to come here to challenge. As for the kind people who wanted to challenge to save their family or relatives, even if they failed, they would be blessed by Tinassha. She was, indeed, a kind witch. Back to the main issue about the curse that was silently cast on him by the witch when he was a child. He wanted her to help him solve it because every time the nightingale sang, it would corrode the vocal cords of women. At this rate, the Farsas royal family would become extinct. As for the person who caused him to do so, he didn't know. When he mentioned this, he felt sad again, and Oscar also felt sorry for him. He had also tried to find out and explore everywhere, but there was no clue. Maybe this was the last resort. Tinassha was not sure if she could solve it, because the silent witch was very powerful. The curse was not like magic. It could be a type of extreme curse that even the caster could not solve. It turned out that Oscar's curse was also a type of curse that was difficult to solve, so she gave up. Tinassha also showed him the curse in the form of a cold spell on her body. Maybe this curse was to prevent unsuitable children from being born, and only strong women could summon the power from this curse. Since she couldn't solve it, Tinassha couldn't let Oscar go back empty-handed. She cast a spell to find a suitable woman for Oscar to marry. He was worried that, what if she was an old woman or already had a husband? In case of such situations, Tinassha would not be able to find anyone suitable. The guy asked if she could summon the curse, and she said yes. Okay. Then I wish you would become my wife. Can I? Tinassha was so shocked that she had never seen such a shameless guy who dared to flirt with her. Although she had never had a fiancé and had never been married, she could not accept this. She also talked about how the royal family would discriminate against a witch like her, so she refused to summon it. He realized that his grandfather must have liked her back then. If his grandfather had not been able to win her heart, then he had to win her heart. After arguing for a while, Tinassha was about to sign the contract and push him out, but the guy refused. Although the sword in his pants was useless, the sword was quite awesome. It was the sword of the royal family, a kakjia. The only sword in the world that could cut magic, so this was a bit difficult for Tinassha. Normally, no one dared to use it, but the guy didn't care about anything and even used the national treasure to fight. He still said that Oscar was really stubborn, but he also wanted to say that to her. It turned out that they were very compatible. Knowing that she would not accept him right away, he only asked to stay by her side for a year in Farsas, and then Tinassha agreed. His Highness, who had been unconscious all this time, also woke up at this time. He thought he was dreaming, but Oscar said that he had already solved it. He introduced Tinassha as a witch's apprentice who would help him solve the curse. Hearing this, His Highness was relieved, and whispered to His Highness to see how the witch was. Would they eat them alive? Oscar couldn't take it anymore and said that calling her a witch was a bit too much. He just said that she was an interesting person and invited Tinassha to get on the horse. His sweetheart said that he would win her heart in the next year, so why bother solving the curse? The nightingale could still sing often. After returning to the kingdom, Oscar was also given a spell by Tinassha. It made him immune to all attacks and magic at a high level. This spell would only be lifted when she died, so he could use it with peace of mind. Although it seemed like cheating, the two sides had made a contract. At least she wanted Oscar to be safe. However, he still had things that were not immune to, such as poison and mental attacks. He also mentioned the marriage proposal again, but Tinassha said that she would not marry him. Later, when she was walking with Lazako, she also asked why he had the blood of the royal family. He said that about 15 years ago, almost all the newborn children of the royal family had disappeared. The country was in chaos again. Oscar just said that it must be very chaotic now. Nearby, a young mage was using magic to light the lamps. He was not very good at it yet, so one of the lamps fell down to the clouds below, but Tinassha caught it. The two apprentice mages saw that the other party could use magic without chanting, which was really amazing. Below, the warriors were also practicing fighting, which made the witch girl more interested. The other two were both generals under Oscar, but it seemed that the red-haired guy was much stronger. Knowing that the Unsi kingdom preferred male heirs, Tinassha also wanted to go down. This is a witch, but her close combat is sometimes better than the other party's helplessness. That guy also made her not a mage anymore, but it's more magical to enter her body. Meridina was quite jealous when she saw that there was a woman who was better than her. Of course, they only knew her as a witch's apprentice, and wanted to bring her down. Lothina then also appeared to announce something important. First, she had to save the present because she saw that the owner seemed very happy since she came here. After receiving this small information, Tinassha also prepared to go out and fight. Oscar saw this and asked her to go first. She said that she only came to cast a spell and would be back in a few days. Of course, he also wanted to follow because they had promised each other that if they lost their wife, what would happen? The little girl also said that she would go to Lake Ruza, an extremely dangerous place, which was where the demon beast invaded about 70 years ago, and now it is in danger of returning. So she had to go and solve it. The story came to Lake Ruza at this time, where the great character was waiting for the witch to come. They realized that the weakness of the beast in the world would lead Tinassha to it. Back at this time, the most potential warriors had gathered to prepare for the expedition. The little girl with blonde hair who was saved by Tinassha before, saw that she had such a beautiful bloodline, so she came to talk to her. She also introduced herself as Sylvia, a former royal mage, but an apprentice. Oscar then also came to ask about the bloodline, and found out that this was his pet. With the demeanor of an emperor, he ordered everyone to be careful and listen to his wife, listen to Tinassha. At this time, the witch suddenly felt a deadly silence. This must be a sign that the other group would all die, and she would wait to return to the tower to live alone. The only one who could change her destiny was herself. So she smiled slightly at him, making him drunk as if for the first time. All teleported to the nearest artillery fort near Lake Rusha, which was associated with the story 75 years ago, when the Rusha kingdom wanted to invade its destructive power, but was pushed back. At this time, they were only willing to recall a demon beast that was very tall, but could not control the result. It had slaughtered everything. At that time, Tinassha had sealed it, but the consequences it left for this land were too great. For 5 years, no trees could grow, and everything was poisoned by the evil spirits. At this time, Tinassha felt someone and called him out. Of course, this guy knew that she was a witch in disguise. Everyone was shocked when they realized that this little girl was a witch. 75 years ago, he was just a little boy, and was lucky to survive. 75 years later, he wanted to take revenge by releasing the demon beast. But what age could he fight against the famous witch? The surprise attack also injured Oscar's team. He himself had resistance magic, so he also protected a few people. Tinassha also slashed over, but it was just a false alarm. She carried the wounded and faced everyone's doubts. So she also apologized, because she didn't want to scare anyone. Oscar also asked if they should retreat because this place was too dangerous. She didn't want anyone to die, so she still wanted to go alone. Right away, he also wanted to go but was stopped. He was the king, and didn't like to be in danger. He said that this matter was related to his country, so he didn't want to let her bear it alone. She was helpless, and told him that she would be fine. They were connected to each other, so she would take care of this burden, and promised to return when Oscar was not so heavy. But when she left, she was caught by that crazy guy, and had to get married after returning. But she was still self-reliant. The other person was trying to break the seal, but unexpectedly, Tinassha came too quickly. The ending for those idiots was death. One of them was still lucky enough to survive. So Tinassha also let him witness the scene of the demon beast rioting. This time, she didn't seal it anymore but wanted to destroy it forever. After this battle, it didn't weaken at all but was still as domineering as before. The battle between the strong had begun. Tinassha created a lightning strike and launched it down, but it didn't work. The fur of this beast had extremely high magic resistance, and its speed and strength were beyond compare. But it had the ability to recover extremely quickly. It was truly a monster among monsters. The witch then used a forbidden spell to seal the demon beast again. She also turned into a super giant to fight it, but unexpectedly, its head escaped and bit her. Tinassha only had time to launch a fatal blow to make it evaporate, and then returned in a very bad condition. Oscar also had some mages to heal her, but they knew that she was fine. Sylvia only knew that she had slapped herself with injuries and internal organs before they could recover. When they visited, they saw that she was not wearing any clothes, so they were a little shy. After a while, Tinassha said that she had developed herself to recover, and her appearance had not changed, except that her hair had been untied. The demon beast had been defeated, so Oscar had to thank her. If it had returned here, who knows what would have happened. And the next day, things started to get better. Sylvia was the one who had no substitute for Tinassha, so she was also sent to take care of her. When she was about to cut her hair, she also came to help. The little girl read in the book that witches could destroy a kingdom in one night, but she didn't think Tinassha was like that. Sylvia thought that witches could do anything, but she didn't think so because she couldn't eat Oscar, who was stronger than her. They later also met the king to introduce the witch. No, the future wife. He also hoped that Tinassha would solve the curse. She said that if she couldn't solve it, she would have to bear the responsibility of giving birth to his child. The story came to the place where the two people were hiding at this time, had collected the demon beast's magic jade. They were plotting something when another witch appeared. He was an acquaintance of the witch who had been searching for her for a long time. He didn't want to meet her again, but only came here to clean up the demon beast. But unexpectedly, he was a step too late. He was about to leave when he was stopped by the little girl, so the other person pushed the little girl away before he was abandoned. On this side, Oscar was also investigating the recent incidents in the stop. He didn't want that girl to interfere because she hadn't shown much recently. Laza discovered a new type of plant that was almost attacked by them. Oscar also rushed over to Slash, but unexpectedly, this thing was very tenacious and could also spit out poison. The Slash was fine, but the poison made him faint on the spot. The incident also attracted another extremely beautiful witch. After Laza woke up, she was also told by her that she was Lucia Ezia, the witch of the Forbidden Stop. Of course, she had a relationship with Tinassha, so she also asked about it. What made her realize was the protective layer on Oscar's body that no one could do. This lady thought that her friend was still in the tower, but unexpectedly, she was working for her. The challenges of the tower were also very difficult for her to overcome, but Oscar could bring her back by himself, which was really not ordinary. It was also funny when she wanted to marry her. Lucia Ezia explained that Tinassha had reached the realm of a spirit witch. People like that needed to keep themselves pure, so they thought they would never be able to have sex on the bed. So she was also sad. So this little girl wanted to buy aphrodisiacs, but she was self-reliant. He was later also affected by this girl and was possessed, but he still returned safely. Tinassha also asked if he had gone anywhere or done anything when she went out, but both of them said no. Oscar also seemed to have been affected in the head. The next day he could still see the illusion beside Tinassha. She realized that something was unusual, so she also went to ask Galilei, but he was fine. She also went to discuss with the mages about the fact that their hearts were fluctuating. They must have a lover or something, but they hadn't made it public yet. She thought for a while and then got angry when she realized that they had gone to see Lucia Ezia. When she questioned Oscar, he said that it was nothing serious. She was also about to die, but she still didn't realize it. The other person had used a method to make her relatives dream, and not remember that she had slept with a girl in her dream. The power from that would also be sucked away, and after 7 days she might die. To solve it, she also made this relative go to sleep, to enter the dream and solve it from the inside. The lover that he always dreamed of was none other than Tinassha. She was really outside, controlling Oscar to strangle the fake person to death. Both of them were sure that it was madness. One of them was a witch who was really there to harm people, and the other was a human who was killing himself. In general, it was just a greeting after many years of not seeing each other, but it didn't affect anything since Tinassha had already come here to confess. Lucia Ezia also knew about the curse on Oscar, by the witch of the swamp. In order to get it, she also gave her friend the fruit, that was the blood and entrails of the old man. Tinassha was also not proud of her friend when she kept such things. She also knew that Oscar really loved her friend, so she came back to warm her heart. The next day when she went to the training ground, she was asked to sit on his lap, and he also apologized for hiding things from her. Tinassha actually loved him too, so she also forgave him, and apologized for creating a nightmare for him. And the next day, Oscar and the soldiers fought together. As usual, they couldn't capture him for more than 2 minutes. Tinassha saw that, and then went, but was fascinated, and wanted to fight with her, and even allowed her to use magic, which surprised her. Wondering how strong this man was, and maybe Oscar was the one who could kill witches like her. She also agreed to fight on the condition that it had to be used to become Acacia. And the battle was then started with a magic attack from Tinassha. The others were amazed when they saw her using magic to approach her opponent, which was the opposite of what most people said when other ancient mages said why she was so strong. She was quite nervous, but in fact, Tinassha was trying to teach Oscar, and also realized that she could see invisible things, which was great. The battle was then paused because her sword had begun to rust. He also asked if Tinassha's husband had accepted her as his wife, because if she used serious magic, how could she get such a minor injury? Oscar continued to flirt, saying that he really didn't want to kill her, no matter what happened. Tinassha didn't want to die because she still had a lot to do, including curing herself of the curse. So, will you be my wife? But still refused on the grounds that she was older. The next day something happened when an ambassador from Cuscoon came to meet the Witch of the Moon. The information about her being here was top secret, but somehow the people there still knew. This made Oscar uncomfortable, so his father also let him go and solve it. The other person introduced himself as Kaga, and came with only one purpose, which was to meet the witch with the greatest power. At first, Oscar also lied that he didn't have anyone. But when he said Tinassha's real name was Eti, he was surprised, and agreed. He was on one side and didn't know about this. He met a very interesting maid who introduced herself as Muralist. The strength he exuded made Tinassha quite curious, but didn't want to investigate too deeply. She went to meet Lucia Ezia, and was asked about the battle with Oscar. He wondered if she wanted to die, or wanted to see herself fight. Lucia Ezia highly appreciated this attitude and thought he could develop himself without Tinassha's intervention. In her heart, she also had no answer as to why she wanted to fight Oscar. It was just good to have someone by her side when something unexpected happened. At this moment, Marudina also came to talk about the ambassador. She also called her by the name Eti, which surprised both of them when this was her real name. They went to meet Kaga, and forbade him to call her by her old name. They asked why they were looking for her, and learned that the country of Sun was restoring the rights of mages. so they wanted to bring her back to manage and develop it together. After hearing that, Tinassha also refused outright because the land didn't want it that way. Secondly, if he didn't have a tower, why would he have the age to talk to her? It was only because Oscar allowed it that she came to meet him. He was very angry when he returned, and then saw a new target, so he easily let the other two go. And the couple also went to ask Lucia, Isaiah, and Cuskun. She had never mentioned that place because it was a small country that had only become independent 5 years ago. At this time, Miradina was manipulated and immediately attacked the two witches. Fortunately, Anne stopped both of them, or there would have been a murder. Oscar also asked what was going on. Then the little girl told Tinassha that she was a woman who deceived men's hearts and wanted her to leave this country, which made her quite sad. Although she had heard such words before, this time it was the most painful. Lucia, Isaiah said that she had been mentally controlled, so she also asked her to help, but it was quite difficult to solve. Oscar also wanted to know when the last time his lover had been cursed, but she didn't remember anymore. It must have been a long time ago. Lucia, Isaiah also finished the treatment in the evening, but seeing her sad, she also felt sad. The next day Oscar was called to the tower to practice. She had sent Lothina to investigate the other country, so she had to pay more attention to the tower. This battle will be more serious than the last one but still ensures his safety. When he finished asking, he found out that she did this to give him more choices in the future. Like if something happened and he needed strength to solve the problem. In the following days, they continued to fight every time Oscar finished his desk work. Today their level has been increased when they have to fight with two warriors at the same time, and they are also blindfolded, which makes them not understand how. She explained that the first day of practice in the palace, he had already done it. This time it was almost done, but it was still not focused enough. He himself was also exhausted after a few days of continuous fighting. So he also fell into his lover's arms, and slept until evening when he saw her concentrating on doing something. So the bad hand touched her waist to comfort her. If it had been before, Oscar might have been blown away, but during this time he was constantly being touched, and he gradually got used to it. Today, he also gradually felt that he had real magic to activate it. He needed to grasp some basic knowledge. However, if he used to become Acacia, he would not be able to activate it, but only see a little real magic. The next day, Tinassha taught him how to extinguish the flames by cutting off the real magic flow. It's easy to say, but to feel where the key point lies is different. Oscar slashed a few times and realized the principle and successfully extinguished the fire. At this moment, some adventurers came to climb the tower. They were in need of opponents to fight, so they also let Oscar fight with these people. Of course, Tinassha will make sure that Ijeka is comfortable, so that he can fight comfortably. This was the last practice session, until Oscar wanted to ask if he could beat her when he was serious. She didn't know this sentence because they had a special invisible bond. Only when fighting will you know. The news about the Siowen shot was also reported. There were about 200 ancient mages gathered there. This is an unimaginable number, because other countries only have 20 to 30 ancient mages at most. The reason why the ancient mages and witches gathered together was definitely to provoke war. For the time being, they still need more information. So Tinassha also asked for more investigation. At this moment, there was sad news. The general of the country who taught Oscar swordsmanship had passed away. The funeral was held immediately after with mourning. Morales was also here because he called her to come, so it was very painful. He was then also told about the curse he had to suffer, and he also found this very bad. Oscar could only marry Tinassha if he couldn't solve the curse. But if he married her, the curse would be directly broken, and Tinassha didn't want to push her child to anyone. He asked why she was not good with his family's curse, so she was also embarrassed and couldn't give him any bad conditions. The school branch came to the place where Kaga was now being paid by Morales. She learned that the leader of this guy had killed the person she was grateful for. She called out the ants to eat and talked to this guy painfully until he died. Today, Tinassha had a very dream about the person she was always looking for. At that time, the feelings between the two were very good, and she always trusted that person. But because of that trust, now each person is in a different place. The next day, Oscar was called by his father to talk about his fiancée. He had already talked to Tinassha, and the result was very good. His future queen needs a very high amount of magic to be able to contain the curse of death. In fact, there was a girl who was very suitable to be a queen. Oscar himself guessed that she was none other than the Queen Morales. She had been sealed away but still had a much higher amount of magic than the average ancient mage. Just by breaking the seal, her magic could completely withstand the curse from his bird. He pretended not to like it, but he was forced to study. All of the above were for the future of the royal family. Just like Oscar's future, he didn't need to be friends with his left hand anymore. A week later, the elevator also asked Morales about the seal on her body, and she knew that there were two types. One was from her mother, and the other was from someone else. Instead of Tinassha, the whole family was missing and didn't feel any pain, making me very worried, and she was on the tower. She also told Lucia and Isia that she had found a future wife for that guy, so she didn't need to worry about it anymore. This lady didn't know if her friend was being serious. Because Tinassha was very suitable to marry Oscar, although she was a witch, she was still a human, and she didn't care about it at all, and continued to study. But that day, Lothina also announced a challenge. Before that, she had closed the door of the tower so she didn't know who it was. As soon as she finished, Oscar walked over and also teleported many times before he broke in here. This time he passed the challenge faster than the last time, which was really amazing. Tinassha was sure that Tinassha had left without permission. She said she was studying the kind of cold blessing that the silent witch gave to the yeast, and it was so complicated that even Tinassha was shocked when she looked at it. Oscar didn't like anyone but her, so he flirted with her and asked her to make dinner for him. The next day, she found her at her house to talk about Miris. Recently she reconfirmed the belongings of the teacher who brought her there, but there was no mention of the other lady. The whole love history was gone, and now she was considered the fiancée of the king, so he wanted to investigate it carefully. Tinassha herself had doubted this person from the beginning, because before coming here, I had looked for a wife for Oscar everywhere, but no one was suitable, except for witches. Now Morales suddenly appeared, which was very suspicious. The reason she didn't look tired was because she felt that she had no intention. Just then Morales came over, so they used a trick to trick her. As expected, after seeing Brother Soul Tinassha, she did nothing. But people like that are really dangerous, and the fake kiss just now made Oscar feel very angry. After a while, this guy called her over and sealed her. The power of the witch was equal to a high-level antique. Even Tinassha couldn't remove it, and she said that she didn't bring her here to give her to another man. She occupied her sweet body to avoid being pierced, and the words above made Tinassha remember the image of the other person, so she lost her temper. Although she had been sealed, her power was still enough to destroy the room. After a while, Oscar also calmed her down, because this was just enough, but the fact that she said it was true, so she still refused to take off the ring. After calming down, they talked about the misunderstanding. Before that, I had also given that guy a lesson for daring to touch the person he said he loved. After knowing that they were investigating Miralist, he didn't want her to hide anything anymore. Tinassha thought she was being used, and there was no evidence to prove that she was guilty. After a while, Oscar called a meeting to let his father and relatives know that he would not marry anyone other than Tinassha. He himself was the only heir, so even his father couldn't bear it, let alone others objected. Miralist also showed her face after hearing those words. Oscar also wanted to investigate her here. Driven into a corner, she called out to the beast that Tinassha had translated before, but with a smaller size. Because the person she was injured, Miralist also revealed that she was the girl in the Ruza family, and she didn't intend to touch Tinassha at first, but she had to grow up after being exposed. Oscar then released the ring for his wife to recover, and she also asked to go somewhere else because this place was very tense. Oscar agreed to help, because he had been trained by her before. Now that her blood was flowing, the protection under it was being neutralized, but she was still very confident. Tinassha closed one eye, but still showed her ability to use magic. Even so, the small beast was still very strong, and completely destroyed her defensive tornado. What they aimed to do was to capture her alive, and let her explain why she wanted to kill her wife. Knowing this, she also released a special ability. These small balls created explosions that were no different from shadows, making it impossible for the moonless witch to approach. She had no choice but to ask Oscar to buy time for her to cast a spell. She was kicked by the beast, but she was still able to protect her wife's safety. Recalling the last time Tinassha put herself in danger to protect herself and the kingdom, she also wanted to do something, and stop defending and turn to attacking. The controlled beast was just a toy, so it was burned by it. He kicked Morales's ball into the net, and it exploded with a bang, and her chance was gone when Tinassha just finished the spell of captivity. If immediately the whole area had become dark, but in order to find out what the other party wanted when they came here, she let her go. Morales was sent to the house to find what she wanted, but she was caught alive, and she also talked about the future. Tinassha will meet the illusion that she has always been looking for, implying that the witch has beaten her lover in the soul of Rua. When she was about to leave, she was caught by her invisible technique, knowing that there was no way out. Morales destroyed her own soul, and Oscar arrived when everything was over. Now, she is just a living corpse without a soul. The sweet ball contains all kinds of ancient characters that she wants to take, is actually her mother's stuff. Tinassha also recovered her eyes, and received an apology from her. She asked about the ball, but he didn't know what it was for. When it comes to mother, this witch has a headache again, and as a result, she is also cared for by the girl, but still refuses to marry. I secretly thought that no matter what, I would not be able to be with this man, and I hope that my dark promise will not touch her. The story came to the place where the leaves were rotten and the beetles were together. They used the ancient magic power to destroy the shock in front of them. They believe that the new era is about to open and continue their plan of invasion. On this side, Tinassha has received news of the leaves that she has been looking for 400 years. Tired of evil is preparing a conspiracy, and she must also prepare a pair of books. That night, she forced herself to lift the curse that could not mate with Oscar, and by the next morning, everything was in place. He woke up and saw his body covered in blood and called the witch to explain. She said that she had cast another powerful curse on him, so that the two curses would cancel each other out. Now that the mating curse is gone, Oscar can rest assured to use his goods to flirt with girls. I was so embarrassed to hear that, and I thanked her for everything. Then she naturally asked her to join the fatherless banquet with her. She disagreed, because it would make others like them. Lala also came in to announce that the prince would not be able to come because he was at war with the Cuscon. It is learned that the magic of the Cuscon has burned down a town, which is a bit of a war color. Tinassha also listened to this, so she called out to talk to him. She asked him if he liked the bloodline that always followed him. It was a lid and wanted to predict that Oscar would be its new owner. Their feelings were gradually ambiguous, and Tinassha kissed him and made him very happy, and the banquet was held with guests from many places. Our Thay from the lower reaches also led his wife in, surprising everyone. Every year, he always went alone, but this time, he brought a bear to wish him a happy birthday. This fatherless man must be coming soon. Immediately afterwards, I had to go and talk to everyone, and his father also called Tinassha to talk. Oscar met the princess of Western Erie, named Saleka, who came to replace Anshai, so she was also asked about the war. It seems that the people on this side are quite confident, because of the strong mages, and Tinassha received a sincere thank you from the fatherless family. Just when the other lady dragged her to talk, she put on a face of nostalgia, which made Tinassha uncomfortable. Seeing this, the king also laughed, and said that if she was willing to take his son to relieve him, it would be good. In the room, Oscar also ran out of words with the little girl who wanted to ask about the skunk, but all the flowers were skin. Just then, Tinassha walked in, not because of jealousy, but because something serious was about to happen. She asked the other lady to go and make her angry because she was the princess of a country, and was driven away by her. Saleka called her the Witch of the Sun and was immediately threatened. With her eyes as cold as... This one immediately cast a spell on Sayem, and at the same time let her beloved know that she had actually died 400 years ago. So Oscar should not be fascinated by a dead person like her, and not forget that the future of this country depends on him. The spell that was cast earlier did not allow me to speak sweet words to her. Immediately after that, the name was destroyed. Tinassha was very happy to meet her homeland again. He also said that he had created the Cuscon cloud for Tinassha to manage. Somi stood watching him and was about to act, because Oscar used the Akaka city but was ignored by her. She said goodbye to him because she had already eliminated the original curse. Mi could not accept that after the war, Tinassha would warn herself not to come near the name. She knew that if she insisted at this time she would be killed, but if she did not, she would be gone. The name on Io saw that it was too time-consuming, and let her go. The next day, Oscar seemed to want to explode when he had been robbed. After finishing all the world lines when he was about to meet the witch, she was already there. Of course, she knew that her friend had gone, so she came to see if Oscar was okay. Lucia Egia was also called to Cuscon but refused, and there was no way to go there with the heretics. The other witches seemed to have refused as well, but Tinassha alone was enough to threaten the whole world. If she really wanted to unify the sisters, the truth of the countries would soon explode. Mi asked about the relationship between Lanak and Meo. Lucia Egia said that after Tinassha became a witch, she always carried the sword of the other name. And when asked if he was a traitor, she knew that for her, the son was the only one. Even if she didn't know what would happen, she would still kill the other name and bring her back. Hearing that, Lucia Egia also told the story that her best friend had told her. 400 years ago, Tinassha carried the Tuanda surname of a magical empire that disappeared overnight. She herself was a royal, or rather the future supreme queen, if that place had not been destroyed. That place was under a monarchy, and whoever was strong was the father, regardless of royalty or nobility. Tinassha was terribly strong from birth, so she was hated by her parents and the royal palace. When she was old enough, the strongest woman would be chosen to marry, and her fiancé was Lana. The only problem was that the strength of the two sides was too different. Tinassha was much stronger, so some bad things happened. That night, Tinassha was taken somewhere by the name after casting a spell on her. He stabbed her several times in one place, and then did something that absorbed her power. With the flesh-colored sacrifices of the strong, this name called out an evil force, but it was too great for anyone to control. One by one, the deep ones were all made to vanish. The other name knew that there was nothing he could do. So he sacrificed Tinassha to the pink energy, who took her own life by becoming the host of that great force. The cold wound still hurt both physically and mentally. During those 3 days, Tinassha lived a life worse than death. The truth spread everywhere, absorbing all the souls around her and creating 5 mysterious lakes throughout the continent. Oscar also asked what she thought of him, and Lucia Eisia affirmed that she loved him. Otherwise, the seal below that she had cast earlier would have naturally died by the name. Their offering was the dragon she loved, and after realizing it, she also ordered to go and kill the name and bring the case. A little later, when he went to school, he was informed that the West Eyrie was attacking Cuscon, and thousands of people had died. The Moon Witch also acted, causing the people in a certain area to evaporate. Their country was fighting with the West Eyrie, so Oscar would be the one to defeat Tinassha. The king was furious when he learned that his son would not attack her. No matter what he said, it was useless. So he also gave up because this guy's personality was too much like his when he was young. He agreed to let him do whatever he wanted, but after he was done, he had to become King Thaman. The story came to the point where Prince Raz was having a bottleneck in the war when Tinassha appeared. This time, she was following 2 tongues, but the little girl was too impatient. She jumped in and spoke for her before she could say anything, so she chased her away to another place. She announced that everything would end in 2 weeks, so she asked him not to lead the army to Cuscon. The other person listened very crabbily when she dared to make such a request. Tinassha considered this country as a remnant of the erosion of history, where they could attack infants, let alone the country's father. She knew that Raz wanted to reform it, but it would be difficult to do anything like this. So she made that request, so that he could decide the fate of the kingdom for himself. If he followed it, things might be easier later on. Tinassha then returned to Lanach. He wanted to use her power to cover the entire continent through the 5 hidden tigers. He still resented that he could not be a part of her, but he still endured, thinking that Tinassha was asleep. Of course, she realized everything and secretly carried out her own plan. A week later, Oscar still hadn't come out or done anything. I don't understand what the people of the West Eyrie are thinking anymore. At this time, news came that the people of their country were also evaporating. Tinassha was targeting the 4 most powerful nations. At this time, a small car Salika came to talk. Since she came here, she had been bothering her every day. Tinassha didn't like her talking about how she knew Tinassha was a witch who made people rich. It was said that Tinassha had recently been visiting the son of this little girl. Hearing that, she was so angry that she asked her to take her there. When she entered, Tinassha was quite surprised because Oscar was very strong. Tinassha also appeared later, but immediately retreated when she saw her beloved here. The next day, Me prepared the army to attack the book. After talking to Rosti, Oscar learned that today was the day that Tinassha said everything would end. Lucia Eyrie also went to investigate and realized that the people who had been evaporated by Tinassha were still safe in the invisible world she had created. So that means she was fighting the enemy alone. Lucia Eyrie also asked me to wait for her to make it. After that, the old law of Lanach also came to say hello. He also moved everyone to the old Tuanda side, which was surrounded by a 10-sided ambush. Lanach also appeared, saying that he wanted to rule everything. If Oscar and his people surrendered, they would be spared. Tinassha then also appeared in a bride's costume. Don't let your beloved wear this outfit to save others. It's really hard. The ceremony then proceeded. Tinassha allowed Lanach to create a bird's heart by connecting the lakes. By connecting the lakes, he could monitor the entire continent and control it forever. After successfully connecting the 5 lakes, Tinassha turned her face and took control of the magic, saying that she had been looking for him for a long time. The other guy thought she wouldn't remember anything about the past, but every stab was clearly remembered by her. She would avenge herself and the unjust deaths of the people 400 years ago. Lanach planned to attack the city but was betrayed. He called on the others to neutralize Tinassha, but it wasn't that easy. She created a barrier for herself and Oscar's people to counterattack. Her two tongues were a little too weak to put their master in danger, but fortunately, she had already acted. She also said that she would do it and asked for 10 more minutes. The tribe was then revived, and Oscar's soldiers were all strong people who were also brave and cunning with the mages. They were strong at long range, but when they were close, they were weak. Tinassha then read the master-level spell, which made the two tongues very surprised. This was the coronation ceremony of Tunda's day teacher. The spirits were originally called by the kings to serve, but no one had ever called all 12 spirits like her. Oscar's opponent was not very good at looking at Menza. He released a very strong fire spell, thinking that he had won, but Oscar came and took his life. The spirits then gave their strength to the heir to the throne of Tunda. The spirits were really excited to be called after 400 years. Among them was a very excited red-haired girl. Tinassha also ordered them to drop all the wounded but not to kill them. The old man had now taken control of the witch Lamgiet. The name was too surprised and planned to run away again until he met the morning light again. Oscar could not forgive this name, so he also ordered him to be arrested. The souls who had died unjustly from the 5 families were also released. The men of the countries also waited for me to return, because he was the one who used Acacia. He didn't care about them and went to his lover. She also used up her strength and fainted. When she woke up, she found herself in her husband's house, and had slept for several days. Everything had been decided as Tinassha wished. Not only did she not get slashed by Oscar's sword, he also naturally talked about how she was already his person. That day he didn't hesitate. Since Tinassha was his fiancée, he brought her back easily like that, and she also tacitly agreed. And the next day they returned to the ruins to collect the good items left behind. This was not a difficult task, so everyone was happy. Among them there was a familiar item from last time. Its shape was similar to her red orb. Tinassha decided to take it to the tower to study it. The next day, when they returned to the story in the Cloud Kingdom, they saw a group of children and a girl living here. These were the survivors of the silent village that was attacked a year ago. The soldiers had tried to send people over as quickly as possible, but only managed to save these children and a girl. The ones who caused that incident were the Ito tribe, wanderers who went around robbing and pillaging. Els was the wife of the village chief, and she was currently taking care of the children. In Tinassha's eyes she felt quite sympathetic towards that girl. A while later, Els told the children the story that had happened 200 years ago in the village. It was about a swordsman who had saved the people in the village, and was asked to marry by the most beautiful girl in the village. He refused and left immediately for a very unreasonable reason. This person was the son of that girl from the future who had come back to find his mother. Tinassha wanted to change the past to let her mother be happy, even if it meant that she herself might not be born in the future. She asked Tinassha what she would do if she was her. She thought that she shouldn't change the past. But that day the couple was arranged a bedroom by the people in this area because they thought the two were a couple. Tinassha quickly transformed into a cat, or else she would have suffered at night. She would stay in this form until they left. That night, Tinassha once again saw the image of someone with blue eyes. Oscar later asked her to explain and found out that she had just entered someone's dream. This was very rare, so she was sure that there was someone here who was emitting a strong emotional fluctuation while sleeping. The next day, they went to the Ito tribe's territory to stop them from destroying the villages in the area. It could be seen that their numbers were very large. Tinassha also didn't want to reveal herself but was stopped by men. The leader of the Ito also appeared very confidently, introducing himself as Xavier, and going straight to the main point. This guy wanted to rob something. The most important thing was still women. This guy demanded to have the woman he didn't catch a year ago as a spoil of war. The two sides would have a duel, and if he won, he would get what he wanted, and if he lost, Oscar could do whatever he wanted with him. Everyone came to Ito's playground, which looked quite mysterious. In the past there was a story about a god who had visited this place. Tinassha felt that something was wrong here. Oscar still wanted to fight and made a bet. If he won, they wouldn't be allowed to rob anymore. Elsa was then brought to meet the one who had killed her husband, but she didn't show any hatred towards Xavier, but instead seemed very concerned. The duel started right after that. It was true that this guy was very good at using a sword, but he was still a bit immature compared to him. Very quickly Oscar was able to cut off one of his arms, and then asked this guy to keep the promise he had made earlier. When Elsa saw the one who had killed her husband, she unexpectedly ran in, worried about his arm. Tinassha realized that the hallucination just now was hers. Oscar saw this and asked his wife to heal that guy. However, after stopping the bleeding with magic, Elsa suddenly went crazy. Her magic exploded, forcing the witches to take everyone in the area to another place. Some kind of power hidden deep underground had touched Tinassha's ability, causing her to go berserk. Men had to use a kaka towards the source of that power, inadvertently causing the kitten to fall down. Oscar abandoned his holy sword to save his wife. She was also very weak in her cat form. Men told her to transform back into human form and continue to find the source of the incident. It turned out that when she had just absorbed that power, her body had lost control. Entering the Edo temple, they saw many stories carved on the walls. After some research, Tinassha also learned about the god that was mentioned. She wanted to learn more, but men stopped her. Right now she didn't have a kaka, so she couldn't block the magic. Oscar still wanted to go together, and temporarily used some swords here, and would find his holy sword later. As they went inside, they were attacked by black smoke. Tinassha set up a barrier to protect them, while men went to find its source, so that he could tell his wife how to deal with it. At the end of the path, he saw Eos in a state of losing control as she was possessed by the dark power here. He naturally rushed in to attack, but it had no effect. The sword also turned into dust before that great power. Tinassha appeared, but she wasn't very well. The closer she got to the darkness, the more her body felt like it couldn't bear it. Right now she could only use half of her original power, so this battle was also very difficult. Their goal was to destroy the thing inside but not kill the host outside. So they had to get the holy sword back first. She had also seen it in the corner, so she planned to take it back. Zavi appeared and said that he wouldn't let this girl die. Tinassha understood his feelings and knew that if they didn't do anything, after the power in her body was completely released, it would cause a disaster. Zavi begged them to save her, so Tinassha had to take action. She asked Oscar again, if she let that thing destroy the world, would he stab her? He didn't accept it and said that if killing her was the last way to save the world, then he would do it. So she felt relieved and thanked the man she loved with a kiss. Right after that, they carried out the plan to take back Acacia. The darkness in Eos's body wanted to enter the witch's body to make her stronger, so it was also attracted by her, and left that host to take over Tinassha's beautiful body. Oscar couldn't bear to see this and asked the dark power not to do that, but it was useless. The dark power had already been subdued, however. To get rid of it, the power of the holy sword was still needed. She had trapped it in the Fale orb, and wanted men to stab it there. She had already calculated the least dangerous spot, so stabbing it wouldn't be a problem. Men was forced into a situation he wasn't prepared for, but after seeing Tinassha's serious face, he also agreed to do it. A sword pierced through the dark orb, as well as through his wife's body. The next day she had recovered. Conviven Eos was also safe in Benzaville. He was the son of this woman who had come back to find his mother. After finishing everything, Oscar saw that his wife couldn't transform into a cat anymore, so he took the initiative to attack, kissing her until she blushed. And the next day Lucia Egia came to visit her friend when she found out that she had let Oscar stab the AKCA into her body. For witches like them, doing that was no different from suicide. Fortunately, nothing unexpected happened. Tinassha had managed to destroy the evil power inside her. In general, she trusted that man very much. Lucia Egia also took this opportunity to talk about the incident where they had hidden their wish for a year. What would they do next after the deadline? Hearing this, the witch thought deeply, proving that she also loved that person very much. The scene changed to another place in a castle. The generals were talking about the upcoming new year. They hoped that their lord would find a queen, so that after the new year everything would be more joyful. The person being mentioned was Tinassha, because in fact, after being helped by her so much, they no longer feared witches. However, there were still some who disagreed, saying that she was a serious and determined human and didn't fear anything. The idea of marrying a witch was really strange, and besides, Tinassha was only the queen of a non-existent country. She had also heard this but didn't care. That person also told her that she should leave this place when their wish expired. She also thought so and said that she might have to break Oscar's wish. But if he found out, he would definitely go crazy. Mrs. Milla saw that her master was being looked down upon and was also angry, but Tinassha didn't care about people like that. Originally, witches were still considered a threat, so it was understandable that he was worried about his lord. In the afternoon, the two girls talked about the words they had said earlier. She also thought that when she left Oscar and was abandoned, she would still have to break his. Tinassha just wanted him to live a happy life, and after fulfilling his wish, Oscar had no more regrets. If she were no longer around, he would probably find someone else to fulfill his duty of continuing the royal line. The blonde didn't want to see that happen. She told Tinassha that if she wanted to die, she should live and die as a normal person. But before that, she should find her own happiness. And hearing this, the witch was touched and agreed with her friend. At this time, the sky was filled with stars, so Tinassha gathered them into a sphere to admire. A moment later, she went to see her beloved, who was a little surprised. He wondered if she had come to design something for him, and she handed him the sphere she had just made. He happily took it and asked his wife what was wrong as she looked sad. She tried to hide her emotions, but it didn't escape Oscar's notice, and he immediately realized that she was planning to use magic. Tinassha said that she just wanted to try a mind control spell, but it was nothing serious, and he believed her. He told her that she should marry him, and that the debt she owed him would be cleared. He thought she should give up being a witch and become his official wife. He told her that if she married him, her aging process would be reversed, and she could become an ordinary person and live with him until her hair turned white. Before she could say anything else, he sealed the deal with a kiss, which had become a common occurrence, so Tinassha was used to it. She told Oscar to stop doing this, and he said that if she didn't want him to, he wouldn't. She was a little hesitant, so she wanted her wife to find the answer for herself in the coming days. She herself had already fallen in love, so she endured it. She was about to kiss him again when a servant ran in and handed him a document, saying that he had to deal with it immediately and leave the room. At this moment, Tinassha suddenly felt something unusual. The kingdom had been suddenly attacked by demons, and the protective barrier had been destroyed. The situation was becoming chaotic. The soldiers under Oscar's command were fighting bravely, and he himself was also attacked. But fortunately, Tinassha arrived in time to save him. With her magic, it was easy for her to kill these demons, and the rescued people thanked her and worried about her safety. In order to quell the chaos caused by the demons in the kingdom, she summoned her spirits, and she herself summoned the wind to extinguish the fires everywhere. These incidents seemed to be part of a plan, and Oscar was glad that he had managed to kill quite a few demons and that everything was back to normal. However, a maid there slipped a potion into his drink without him knowing. The potion took effect immediately, and even the protective barrier that Tinassha had cast could not resist it. Soon after, the witch also discovered something unusual, and realized that the poison on Oscar's hand was deadly. She used a spell to stop the time inside his body, so that the poison would not spread any further. However, in order to save him, she needed someone else who was an expert. Lucia and Isaiah were then invited, but they didn't know what had happened. However, from the symptoms, she could tell that the thing that was killing Oscar was a natural poison. Since the Dark Ages, this had been a poison with no antidote. Tinassha still had a way, but she needed her friend's help. She wanted to turn her body into a serum, and inside her body, time would slow down, even for this poison. During that time, Tinassha wanted to create an antibody herself, so that she could save her beloved. Lucia and Isaiah objected because it was too risky, and if she failed to create an antibody, it would be like seeking death. However, she had made up her mind, and wanted Lucia and Isaiah to help her this time. After begging for a while, her friends finally calmed down, and asked if this man was worth her risking her life for. She answered very quickly without thinking. So Lucia and Isaiah began the process of transferring all the toxins from Oscar to Tinassha. This poison was very strong, and even a witch might not be able to control the pain and stay conscious. If that happened, she would definitely die before she could create an antibody for herself. One last thing Tinassha wanted to ask was for Oscar's memories of her to be erased. Lucia and Isaiah disagreed, saying that if her friend died, she would make him regret it for the rest of his life. The next day, he woke up because the poison was no longer in his body. He couldn't remember anything because Lucia and Isaiah had actually erased his memories of Tinassha. Everyone there knew about it but kept it a secret. Oscar himself felt that something was missing, but he didn't know what it was. When he looked at the sphere he had received from Tinassha, he felt a little thoughtful. When asked about what had happened before he woke up, he didn't say anything. He just told his servants to find a woman for him quickly. It seemed that Oscar's memories had been purified by Tinassha's actions, so he wanted to use this method to transfer his feelings. He wanted to make Oscar remember the woman he truly loved. The image of his wife appeared the next day, so he went to their secret room. Lucia and Isaiah appeared and asked him what he was doing. He had silenced his servants, and even though his memories were being tampered with, he still remembered her and came to find her. When he asked where Tinassha was, he saw that she was lying on the bed, poisoned. Although the spread of the poison had slowed down, it had now spread throughout her body. She didn't have much time left, and the pain it brought made the witch's mind unstable. Fortunately, she had Isaiah's steelbook, so she could still recite the incantations. Knowing that it was all his fault, Oscar could only apologize. He wanted to see her body, but Lucia, Isaiah, and Van stopped him, because no girl would want her body to be seen like that. He said that he would take responsibility, so he should be allowed to see her. That wonderful man was probably the last thing that made Tinassha create the antibody. The next day, she woke up, which made Lucia and Isaiah very happy. They also healed all her wounds, and let her go see her beloved. Oscar still appeared calm, but his heart was filled with tears. He asked if her body was okay, and he still didn't believe it. He wanted to see it with his own eyes, so he asked Tinassha to take it off. She refused, and he didn't know what she was thinking anymore. He also wanted to ask her why she thought of him after they had made a wish together. Tinassha also told him the truth, saying that he was the most important person to her. He was very happy, and told the witch to think more about him. She then told her friends about this, and they also gave her advice, so that she could admit to herself that she loved Oscar. She didn't understand what Tinassha was thinking. Although she said she loved him in her heart, she didn't know what love was in her mind. She asked everyone there if they thought she loved him, and they all raised their hands. She also wanted to destroy something, but Lucia and Isaiah told her to be honest with her heart, because this was the truth. Being told this made the witch's head spin, so she wanted to go and see Oscar to confirm whether her heart really belonged to him. The couple met later, but unlike what she had just said, she was very hesitant in front of Oscar, and couldn't bring herself to do anything. In the end, he conquered her, and her willpower was no match for her heart, after all that had happened. She cried and confessed her feelings, and they kissed happily. That night was also the first night the couple slept together. After losing her powers, Tinassha found it difficult to use magic as before. However, she had found her own happiness, so she was satisfied. She would continue to practice in the future to improve herself, even if she had lost a lot of her magic. He told her that after they got married, she would also have the privileges of the Emperor Farsas, so she could learn whatever she wanted. Speaking of marriage, Tinassha was a little hesitant because she was already satisfied with his love. Oscar, however, insisted on marrying her. On the day before the New Year, he also told his wife about the Emperor's duties during the New Year. In general, they would ride horses to introduce themselves to the public, as was the custom left by the ancients. This day must be well prepared for, because they could not know if there would be an evil plot to attack that day. At this moment, Latola appeared and announced that there were guests at the tower, even though it was always closed. That's right, but today's matter is quite different, so the little girl came to report it. The other 5 wanted to meet Tinassha. All of them were 10-year-old children. Knowing that, the witch also had to return to the tower to ask what those kids wanted. At first, she was older than them, but then she also told about the incident that happened in the north. Instead of raining like every year, this year, there was something new. The other 4 children thought this boy was lying, so they brought him here to ask the witch. Tinassha thought it was just a coincidence, but she didn't expect him to dare to come here without encountering robbers or kidnappers. This boy took the prince's order to come here to prove that, when Oscar Fulu came here, he would be stronger. Obviously, he also wanted to be stronger like him. Tinassha had no choice but to explain to the children that before coming here, their prince had practiced a lot. If they wanted to be as strong as that boy, they had to practice martial arts even harder. After explaining, the witch also opened the teleportation gate to send the children home safely. She also used surveillance magic to prevent other children from coming to the tower and putting themselves in danger. After returning to meet Oscar, he also asked why his lover didn't want to marry him. The reason was in her, so she also talked about the fact that she really had a demon in her. He also wanted to get rid of it right away, so he was also curious. In fact, in this boy's body, there was an amount of magic power that was hard to control. That strong magic power seemed to have been sealed since he was a child. And if she gave birth to a child for her husband, their child would definitely be a powerful sorcerer, which had never happened in her miserable life as a sorcerer. Worse, if she gave birth to a daughter, that child might become a witch who would be feared by the world like her before. If it was a boy, it would be a little better because he could use Arcacia. That sword would suppress the magic power in his body like she was doing. She said that here, it was possible that he already knew that this boy had strong magic power, so he let him use the sword, since he was a child. According to his wife, it was possible that Oscar's mother or someone else had unsealed the power within his body. In general, this matter still needed to be investigated further. As for the marriage, she still insisted on marrying him. If one day they had children, he thought that he just needed to explain to the boys about their strength and life, one by one. His wife also didn't take away the boys' chance at first to give them a chance to come out. On New Year's Eve, she and the guards rode horses in the middle of the procession to welcome the new year with the people. Everyone was happy, because this year, they saw a beautiful woman following their prince. After arriving at the place to give New Year's greetings, Oscar always looked thoughtfully at the girl he loved. Tinassha didn't say anything, but just focused on being vigilant. As expected, there were some bad guys targeting them. When she realized them, the witch used lightning to make them run away. There was still another person following them, the boy who came to her tower the day before. The other children, when they realized that the woman following the prince was a witch, were also curious. So they followed her. She was still as gentle as the day before when she took the children home. At this time, it was raining, so the progress of the move was delayed. Tinassha thought of something better and immediately used magic to turn the rain into glowing snowflakes. This beautiful scene appeared at the beginning of the new year, so what could be better? At the end of the ceremony, the witch felt a little stressed, probably because she had used too much magic while she was still not stable. Oscar also asked his wife to go home to rest. She was very happy and talked about the marriage. She also wanted to think more before making a decision. As for her, she also said that she would go to her father to ask about her mother, so that she could know more about her mother's background. Before that, he had said something about his son being very similar to him in the past. Oscar thought that maybe he said that because he wanted to marry his mother like him. And what if her mother was also a witch? And no matter what happened, she was still happy to be born to her mother. Only then could she be with her husband like this. The story came to the place of the witch Leonora, a person who was extremely interested in the Witch of the Moon. After knowing that she had become a man, she also ordered to find a way to kill Tinassha, because she was not as strong as before. The next day, Tinassha came to inform her that in 2 weeks, she needed to attend the anniversary ceremony. He didn't want to go but wanted to solve the problem elsewhere. Tinassha still forced her to go, so she also wanted her wife to go with her, along with a few assistants. Tinassha didn't want to go there at all. She just wanted to follow the prince, but he also said that it was not possible, because he already considered her as his prince's wife. Hearing that, she was also embarrassed but agreed to go to Gondona. Before that, she had also watered that place once because she was asked to kill the monster. There were a few incidents recently, so she was very vigilant, and also said that if she felt anything, she must tell her immediately. She herself would stay somewhere to observe. Tinassha also came to the banquet. A vizier also came to Tinassha. They all knew each other, and this time, meeting again also surprised him. He felt that this girl had grown up, and must have fallen in love, so he said so. Besides Echiae, he also talked about the fact that even though she understood her great power, she still let herself get hurt. Looking at Oscar Chavez, he affirmed that, if he was a girl, he would also want to understand, because he saw the qualities in that person. When asked what he was doing here, he knew that he had become the Prince of Gondona. And when he saw the boy he loved looking up, Tinassha lost her vigilance and smiled. The other guy said she was stupid because he could have made a move. But she didn't stop him and asked if he wanted to try. Seeing her serious face, he was also a little scared, so he stopped because if he made a move here, that person would be fine again. As soon as he finished speaking, another beautiful girl came over, and scolded this boy for daring to flirt with another girl. Aurelia was the queen of this place, so she also knew how to apologize to the witch when she was disturbed by her nephew. After introducing her, she knew that this was the prince's fiancée, and was also afraid that she would be offended. The other guy said that they had already had sex, so it was okay. By the way, he also asked when they would get married because he really wanted to see how strong their child would be. In general, Tinassha had not decided on that, so Aurelia thought that she didn't like having children. Their couple was also having similar problems when the witch wanted to have children, but the boy wanted to have children with this girl. Aurelia also said what she thought about having children. As mothers like them, they could realize that having children was a good thing. Later, when she returned to the room, Oscar was also bathed by his wife. She told him about the fact that the Ayata princess had disappeared before coming to Gondona. This was a big problem. Maybe the people there were having some kind of internal conflict. Hearing the news, the people there had also prepared for war. Tinassha also said that she could send someone to investigate if he wanted. The boy also thanked her and then pulled his wife in. He also talked about the fact that during the ceremony, she always talked to a man. In her opinion, she felt that he was not human. Tinassha was also quite surprised because she had never thought that anyone could see through the vizier. She also said that he was one of the highest-ranking demons, also known as the Demon King. Before, when she came to this place to fight, she was also fighting with the vizier. In general, that guy was not interested in witches but was interested in Oscar. So his wife wanted him to stay away from that person. That night, while they were sleeping soundly, a group of demons suddenly attacked. Tinassha's wife also only had time to wrap a blanket around her, and then ran outside to fight. She had transformed into a rather strong person, and successfully fought back. When asked what she wanted to do, she knew that she was only following orders. But when asked about the owner of the order, there was no answer. At this time the vizier was also transforming into another person, the teammate of the boy. They had escaped by teleportation, which surprised the Witch of the Moon. The vizier also tried to say that the other guy wanted to kill his Aurelia, so he fought back. In the morning, the news of the dead had reached Oscar. The thing that was being talked about was that Tinassha was among those who were considered dead because of her reckless actions. In this incident, she also thought of a few people who could be behind the scenes. That was the unknown witch Leonora. This is a kind of retribution, because she couldn't be happy with the traitor in the past, and she had fought with that girl and was hated by many people for the same reason. As a result, the two people they loved, Tinassha and the traitor, couldn't be happy either. It is said that she is in the IAA and has a good relationship with the prince, which is quite surprising because the role of a witch does not interfere with war and other countries. However, unlike other witches, she has a different attitude, which is to spread war to the kingdoms. Now she has many subordinates and achievements in her hands, such as sealing an ancient castle. So Tinassha doesn't know much about her, but she still wants to go with Oscar Hugh Roy, who doesn't allow his wife to act alone. The incident is related to the war, so she also wants to intervene before the war between the countries really breaks out. And the next day when they arrived at the headquarters of the IAA, they saw a strong sandstorm around them. According to Tinassha, the missing princess may be inside the sandstorm, so the next day they also went in. Men also introduced himself as Oscar, the Prince of Farsas. The princess of the IAA is Nepheli, and she fell in love with men at first sight. He also talked about not interfering in other countries' wars, but the situation could lead to war, so he would help them. He said that their opponent was a witch. They were surprised and wondered if the other party was a witch. So Tinassha confirmed that she was the one who caused this. But she also asked Oscar to talk to the princess, and she would go and solve other problems. It seems that the witch is very confident that she can defeat Leonora, because she is very hot-tempered and easy to be tricked if they fight wisely. In order to lure her out, all they need to do is to reveal that Tinassha has approached Princess Nepheli. But Tinassha has already investigated everything, so she has grasped the whole incident. However, Oscar didn't know anything about it, so he also pressed his wife's head for not telling him before she went. She also talked to Nepheli's Ankai. In short, they will have to destroy Leonora before the war breaks out. That night, the witch also asked a spirit to observe the surroundings. Oscar also asked his wife what he would do, and she told him to defeat the right-hand man of the witch. He has the ability to absorb monsters to enhance his body's strength. He is an inhumane and strange person, so it is difficult to predict. Men is confident in his ability, and tells his wife to rest assured, and leave him alone. The most important thing is that he doesn't want her to act on her own as before, because they already belong to each other, so he doesn't want anything bad to happen. Hearing this, Tinassha was very happy, and said that she would not die, so he could rest assured. After saying that, she was pushed down. Oscar also wanted to do it, but his wife didn't allow it because this was not their home. Tinassha also said, okay, and continued to torture his wife until dawn, which made Tinassha give up because he was too cruel. At this time, the weather had stabilized, and there was no more sandstorm, which made Princess Nepheli very happy. She just said that she was tired because she had to wrestle with the machine. Tinassha also called the people who followed her to support her, because she knew that Leonora would come in a few days. The witch's right-hand man has now received the news that Tinassha has broken their sandstorm. As expected, she was very angry and wanted to go there from the witch's moon. On this side, Tinassha was taking a bath when the princess came in. Everything would have been fine if there were no hickeys on Tinassha's neck. The princess noticed it after being reminded by her attendant, so she used magic to erase it, otherwise it would be too embarrassing. Seeing this, the other girl was even more surprised. The two of them also talked privately about what would have happened if the witch hadn't interfered in Oscar's life. Then Nepheli might have been his queen because the relationship between the two countries was good. Tinassha herself also felt that she liked the person she loved, so she was a little bit self-deprecating. What will happen to men seems to have been doomed, because it is all related to witches. Thaisa also recalled what happened before she met Leonora. She was a beautiful but harmless woman. Seeing that Thaisa had just experienced something painful, she gave her some advice. Just do what you like, because they are the ones who are greedy for power. Live freely as you want. She had always lived like that until she met Oscar, and was taken back to be his wife. Everything had changed, so Thaisa also wanted to change her way of life. She faced the person who had given her advice, and told her about Arlasai's way of life. The battle outside had already broken out, and Oscar also blamed his wife for taking a bath, but he had to take a comfortable bath to be able to fight with all his strength. She also tied a hair tie to his arm, so that if anything happened, she would come to his aid when he pulled on it. Seeing that his beloved wife was very relaxed, he also said that if he won this battle, he would like to hold a wedding ceremony with her. This time, his beloved wife agreed, which shocked him and everyone else. Oscar thought to himself that he must win, because only by winning could he marry her. The couple flew in the wind and approached their opponent. Leonora also greeted the little girl from that day. Thaisa also greeted her with a sword, but she dodged it. In the meantime, Oscar did exactly what he said, and defeated Leonora's right-hand man. She felt that they were too confident, but Thaisa didn't care about those words. She created a magic circle and seriously injured Leonora, but it didn't work. Witches have a very high recovery ability, so if Thaisa doesn't give a fatal blow, she will never die. As for Oscar, he also gained an advantage by cutting off one of the enemy's arms. However, this person didn't simply use his own flesh and blood to create new weapons. His body is also very strong, so it is still unknown who is better. Above, Leonora felt that this girl was too presumptuous, and wanted to teach her how to live like a real witch. She summoned something huge from the ground, which made Thaisa worried. Knowing that Oscar was in danger, she wanted to help him, but something seemed to disable her magic circle. The thing that appeared below was a huge castle, which was sealed by Leonora a long time ago. Oscar was also trapped inside. The situation was very difficult when the witch wanted to use the ultimate move to finish it. If Thaisa avoided this move, Nepheli and her people would definitely die. If she took it, she might also die, which would lead to the destruction of the castle below. In the end, Thaisa still chose to take the move, and create an immortal woman. Oscar seemed to feel something, and also wanted to end the battle to find his wife. Leonora then returned to celebrate her victory. But not long after, Thaisa came to her, which shocked her. Although she had lost an arm, the witch was still very strong. That guy had taken away her virginity, but she was still so strong. If she still had her limbs, the battle would have ended by now. She wanted to make Leonora regret becoming a witch like this. The power slowly gathered, and moved the whole castle, which made the other side panic. At this time, Oscar called his wife for help, so she stopped. He was still fighting on one side, but he couldn't win, or lose. At this time, Thaisa's presence changed the situation. Leonora also pretended to be calm when she was despised by this girl. Oscar's wound hadn't healed yet, so he was worried. She said that she was fine, and wanted to finish this battle first, and then recover. Both witches have such strong swordsmen, so the couple who is more united will win. Thaisa wanted to create a surprise and attack first, but she was blocked. Oscar immediately took her place and pushed the other guy away so that his wife could attack. That move also hurt Leonora, but her recovery speed was still very fast. She continued to be blown out of the castle by the witch in a painful way. She said that Thaisa's actions were futile, but she didn't think so. She continued to attack her with rocks and dust, which made the other side laugh. What could these rocks and dust do? So she fought back. But Thaisa had disappeared, which startled her. The result was that she was pierced through the heart by Oscar's sword. It turned out that the two wives had worked together to switch places with each other. The other sword was pierced, and all the witch's abilities were nullified. Leonora looked at Thaisa for the last time, and saw that she had defeated the other guy, so she also closed her eyes. So this is the power of love between the two of them, and for her who could not get love, she had to endure. Leonora thought it was just a nap, and then gradually fell into a distant dream. The battle had ended, when the outsiders had disappeared. Returning peace to Aida, Nepheli saw the couple happy together, and secretly admired them. Tinassha was also satisfied with this result because after that, she and Oscar would get married. The match just now was also a deal between Tinassha and Travis. While waiting, they met to talk about this issue. Leonora was defeated, so she wanted him to keep his promise. She said that the Curse King would target her beloved when she was off guard, so she made such an agreement. Travis also promised that as long as Oscar was alive, he would not target his country, and he also wanted to see what this couple would do next. A few days after the couple waited, they got married as planned. The people also knew that Tinassha was a witch, so they guessed that the bride would wear black and be extremely beautiful. However, when she appeared, it was completely different. She was wearing a pure white dress, plus her inherent beauty, which made the people excited, and the officiating priest also ran in to marry them. Here, the full moon witch suddenly saw someone familiar, so she was a little surprised that she was here. Oscar was also in the church announcing their wedding. Her Acacia also reacted, making her husband suffocate. Their love will definitely be a distant love. Both of them were very happy. They did not expect that after so many things, they would come together like this. After a few days of getting married, Tinassha called in to help clean up the things in the light tower to go home, and continue to be arrogant. To thank her, her husband also gave her a light kiss, which made all of Oscar's fatigue disappear. Here, he accidentally saw his wife's necklace stained with blood. The back of it had her real name many years ago, proving that this thing was related to the bastard who had been killed by him to protect his wife that time. He lifted another box below to reveal a sphere similar to the sphere that Oscar's mother left behind. The only difference was that it was a dark color and had not been used. Holding it for a while, he accidentally activated it, making Tinassha worried, trying to reach for it, but was taken to another place. There, based on his ability, he realized that this was the forgotten city of Tunda, which was also the place where Tinassha's ancestors hid. Naturally, how did he break into his wife's room when she was young? At first, she thought this was a conspiracy, so she attacked. Fortunately, there was Acacia, so he was still superior, and then he sealed her again and explained. He said that he came from a time 400 years later. Hearing that, Tinassha was very surprised because it was true that in the book, there was a spell for the user to go back in time. So what Oscar said was not unfounded. And he also asked if there was a way to go back to the previous time, but he knew that there was not. In the end, he had to stay here and play with his wife when she was young, but surprisingly, this girl did not show much surprise. She also promised to take care of him, and invited him to stay here until there was another way. Hearing that, he felt warm because the time outside was a bit boring. Regarding the research on the magic to return, it might take time. Oscar just hoped that she would not be too anxious because her anxious personality in the future had already existed since this time. He was about to go to another room to sleep when she allowed him to sleep here, because if he went out now, it would cause chaos. When asked how old she was now, she said that she was only 10 years old. It turned out that a 10-year-old was so mature and thoughtful. The wind blew through the autumn leaves as Oscar hugged her and fell asleep very easily. The next day, he naturally learned that because she was afraid of being assassinated before she became powerful, everything was done by herself. But she must be very lonely. But suddenly having a friend from heaven like this was really fun. She herself was trying to learn many things so that in the future, she would protect the people of Tunda. When she tasted the fruit she made, she felt the sour taste of her wife in the future. It seemed that she already knew all the bad things that would happen to her in the past. Oscar also asked when her next birthday was so that he could prepare a plan to change the future and take her away, and he knew that it was coming soon. During the day, the two of them searched for information together, and his wife was curious about her phantom sword. He also explained that this sword could reflect all magic, and Tinassha also realized that he was a royal family in Farsas. She tried to use magic on the sword, but it really did not work. At this time, he remembered that the sphere he was holding was similar to the sphere his mother left behind. That life was very vague. Every time he thought about it, he would have a headache, and he also told her about the sphere he touched was dark. For the time being, she could not do anything, but could only study in this room, because she had an innate talent, even though she was not a witch. But at this time, Tinassha could already feel that the technique inside him was being sealed, and his wife saw that the words inside were extremely complicated curses and blessings. He also only mentioned the incident when he was a child when he was cursed and blessed. Suddenly, Tinassha became interested in learning about his body. Okay, let's just do it, because now I don't know what to do. But before letting his wife touch it, he also asked her to practice swordsmanship with him. It is said that using a sword in the future is very important, or rather when Tinassha is always using a sword. So learning swordsmanship from this time will give her a better foundation in the future, and it will be faster. Just like that, time passed by in a flash. The couple lived very happily together, and the dragon his wife gave to Oscar was also naturally returned. When asked what kind of person she would be in the future, he naturally told his wife that she was a very good person, but he did not mention that they would get married in the future. but everything else Oscar said was very accurate. Today was also the day when Lynette came here to prepare to carry out the conspiracy. Her birthday was coming soon, so he brought the necklace to her. Of course, Tinassha did not suspect anything because they were about to get married. That night, Oscar came back and asked about the necklace, wanting her to give it to him to try. His wife trusted him very much, and he also talked about how she would be killed by that guy in the future. Although she regarded him as family, that guy only needed power. She still did not believe it because without that person, she would be very lonely. There was no one to play with. Tinassha also persuaded Oscar to leave because she was here. He also did not ask Tinassha to do anything, let him handle everything next, helping her dream of living with her family like other children. It was a pity that it was impossible, because she was too talented. He also promised that her future would not be lonely anymore. So don't worry, after a while, she also fell asleep. The next morning, both of them apologized for what happened last night. Tinassha also said that she did not know that Lynette would come to hurt her, and today, she also went out a lot. So Tinassha found a dark sphere like Oscar Muta. It was in a forbidden room, but if she used Acacia, she could break into it easily. Before going to get that thing, his wife also asked about the matter again. Is it true that 400 years later, they will get married? He affirmed that it was completely true, saying that if he could go back, he would love her more in the future to make her happy. He also reminded her not to trust Lynette too much because he was her man. At this time, Tinassha felt very strange in her heart, as if something was about to happen. Hearing the sound of footsteps, she thought he had come back. But it was not. It was Lynette. And today was the day when that guy acted to take Tinassha away. On the other side, Oscar had found the sphere, but did not rush to touch it because he would be sent back to the previous time. He felt that there must be a reason why he was brought here. And suddenly, the sphere glowed again. A moment later, when that innocent girl was taken to the scene, Lynette was about to stab her several times, but was stopped by Oscar in time. The truth from here has been revealed. She could not believe that the words in the future were true. That guy wanted to harm her to seize her power. He also let the mage attack, but was all countered by Acacia. She was very confident and said that it would be fine, and then she protected herself with the barrier. But the sun did not follow but reserved the realm to protect Oscar. This trust made Lynette the old tree, and when he knew he was not their opponent, he had done it. Everything in the promised fruit is gradually changing, agreeing that the future will also change. He remembers the words of the sunflower tree about Tinassha. Oscar told his wife to live on her own, remembering the words he said about a brighter future. Immediately after that, she also said thank you to this name, and wanted to end everything here. The power in her was so great that to take it, this name stabbed himself to do it. If he had stabbed Tinassha, the success rate would have been almost impossible. Here he stabbed himself in his own body, resulting in being eaten by that power and dying on the spot. The most important thing is still the new agitation he left behind. Now it will absorb it all into becoming a witch, but this country will also be destroyed. Oscar encouraged her that she could not control that power. Unlike Lynette, she is much stronger, so he is sure that his wife will do it without affecting anyone. And if something happens, he will always be there to support her. Being empowered, Tinassha is more confident in him. She herself was not injured as in the future, so she successfully absorbed all that tyrannical power. The future is not destroyed and everything has changed. Oscar is sure that in the future she will be happy as she wishes. Immediately after that was a passionate kiss, even though his wife was only 11 years old. From here the truth begins to be revealed. Me can't stay here much longer. Maybe the story in the future they heard is completely true, that a boy has returned to the past to ask his mother to change the course of history in their own lives. And maybe Oscar's mother in the past did the same, using the time sphere to return to the past to seal her son's power. Although this is his strength, he did it to ask Tinassha. But those who return to the past to change the future will disappear. The stories in the future for Oscar will turn into nothingness. Maybe 400 years later he will not be born anymore. So, this is the last goodbye to his beloved wife. I have completed my role, and will soon disappear. I hope she will also complete her role as the queen of the future, live a happy life, and let me go. And perhaps if he had been given the chance to go back in time before touching the sphere, if he knew he could ask his wife in the past, Oscar would still choose to do so to change everything, regardless of himself. He hugged his lover for a long time, waiting for the moment he disappeared from the world. At least while here they had a very happy time together. She said she would wait 400 years after he was born, and then they would reincarnate. He also hoped that the miracle would happen, and then asked her to close her eyes. And when she opened her eyes again, Oscar was gone. The strong wish in her head made Tinassha suffer, because she had lost the person who truly loved her. She could only cry in pain, and then turn to a new future that he had drawn. The story comes a few years after Tinassha has grown up. She has become a great queen in the eyes of the people of the future, hoping that after 400 years they will reincarnate to know this unbelievable wish.